welcome back to the Limitless Potential Show. I'm your host, Vanessa Jane Patrick, and today we have yet another exceptional guest. We have Anita Tomecki. So today's live interview is with such a beautiful soul, someone who I actually met when I was training for my NLP Practitioner course, and whom I really, really deeply enjoy her wisdom, particularly in the area of Enneagram personality typology, and loads of other stuff. She's an expert in human behavior, trained NLP Master Practitioner, a one-on-one coach, a speaker, and a workshop facilitator. So Anita has many years of experience working with both women and men to deeply understand the workings of their mind, their programming, and therefore their personality, and how this has been constructed since childhood. Experiencing firsthand the power of fully understanding her own mind, Anita works with people on a daily basis to firstly understand their mind and then make the necessary changes to live outside of the constructs of this. She believes that using a number of modalities, including the Enneagram and personality typology, there is a true opportunity to live a more peaceful existence. So I'm very excited to bring her on. So make sure that you guys are sharing this conversation with anybody that you feel could find value in it, anybody who is looking to up-level themselves and their personal development and reach their potential in any and all areas of life. And make sure that you are dropping some comments and asking your questions, and we will be getting to those at the end. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the one and only Anita Tomecki. Hey Anita, thank you so much for joining us and being on the show today.
Hey Vanessa, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, firstly, just thank you for joining us, your beautiful energy and your wisdom that you share every time I've been able to connect with you. It's so beautiful. So I want to start off with asking you, what are you most grateful for in your life right now?
Oh, there's a question. I'm going to go with my health. Yeah. Big one. Yeah, had a bit of a, haven't had COVID, but a bit of a time over this period of some health stuff going on, and yeah, so really appreciating being healthy, and yeah, just a real lesson in taking care of self and yeah, the importance of that and of being healthy. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, well, it's a good answer for the time that we're in, right? Like with the whole COVID pandemic. And, I'd love to ask you, what's been your experience? Just because, we're in this crazy time right now, and you get to deal with people one-on-one and with your clients, and just with the way that, the lens that you see the world, and your expertise. What are you kind of seeing that, is happening for people, and how could we maybe most empower ourselves? I know this is a really big question, but how do you feel we could be more empowering of ourselves during this kind of crazy time?
Yeah. Well, as a generalization, in the experience that I've had around it, is I see that people really are. So I've had more people coming into coaching than ever before during this time. Yeah, it just seems that for some people there has been more time to go inwards, to really start to see where, we may have distracted ourselves before, with going out, with work, with achieving, with earning money, and really this time for a lot of people, there's been a real opportunity, even those, and probably those that have suffered the most through this in terms of finances and businesses and jobs and health and things like that. For people that tend to hit that really, rock bottom, they're the ones that often come out the strongest from this in terms of their own personal growth. So it may not be true for everyone, but in a lot of cases I've seen, and as human beings, we are kind of conditioned to get through things and see the value in the hard times. So I've seen it, definitely seen a lot of that. And as I said, just seeing more and more people coming into coaching, going more inwards. It's like going in is the new going out, right?
I love that. You know, it's an interesting time, right? Particularly in the realm of connection, and it's been fascinating even from my own perspective. I've had the same experience as you, many more people coming into coaching. It's like a transitional period that we're all in, and we can innately know now is a good opportunity, to focus on where it is that I'm going, who it is that I am, and also the value of connection, right? Like I've even noticed in my own personal life, I'm here in Melbourne. I took a crazy trip back down from Queensland, and I've been in lockdown by myself pretty much since April, right? And we had some little spurts where we could be with one another. But now, like total lockdown, stage 4. And it's been interesting for me to see that I'm like, part of me it's like a little bit worried that like this is not natural. And then the other part of me is like, how is it that I feel so deeply connected, but I'm by myself? And I think it comes down to that quality of connection and being on purpose and having meaning in your life, like having that depth. But what's your experience with that? And
I really love you're sharing there, because it's so true. It's like, for some people it's really given them the opportunity to really see that as much as it is lovely to have other people in our lives, of course, and it's so important as part of the human experience, but when there is no choice and there is a lockdown going on, how you get to experience that there isn't anything that you're not actually disconnected from. We're always connected.
Yeah.
And the minute that we're trying to search for that connection outside of ourselves, we're often missing that it's all there for us internally, so it's all there. It's all there. We if we really knew that about ourselves, then we could be anywhere on our own and be okay with that, because there are times where you just don't have a choice, as you're experiencing now.
This is
so it's a really great time for that. Big one.
I really think that what you just shared then is so important for people to understand. And some of us are getting that experience. For me, I tried to go away for 3 months by myself. And then I had a bunch of people come on that trip with me, right? And then I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And now I'm like, the reason why I wanted to do those things was because I felt like they were so scary that I had to do it. Like I had to challenge myself. And so, to know that you can spend that time with yourself, and to know that you've got, like you just said so beautifully, that you've got all those things that you seek outside of yourself, you've got them actually within. And it's not a substitute for meaningful connection with other human beings. Like I'm grateful I get to have this conversation with you, right? It's very enlivening. But what advice would you give to people out there, or have you had the experience of giving your clients in terms of when they feel lonely or in disconnection?
So this I'm very aware that some of the things that I will be saying today can seem quite high level, so I really want to frame that up as well, because some of this stuff is obviously quite like, what are you talking about? That's not, that can't be possible. So just to frame that up, and just to offer, if anyone wants to chat afterwards or anything, I'm available for that as well. So it's a really big one. So loneliness only exists in mind. So it's a construct, it's a concept. So to feel lonely, we only know that we're lonely when we think about being lonely. So in full presence, which is obviously, how many of us are living that, but when we can be fully present, so in times of maybe meditation or any sort of sitting practice where we sit in stillness, when there are no thoughts, minimal thoughts, running, then there is nothing to be lonely about. When we're present, we're just here with you right now, and there's no thinking going on. I'm here, or whether I'm with a tree, whatever that is, whatever we're experiencing in presence, when the mind's not thinking about what we're experiencing and we're simply there experiencing it, then there isn't anything to feel lonely about. So it's a really big, and it's a practice, right? We don't just hear this once and suddenly free ourselves from loneliness, because if we felt lonely for a number of years, well, then we've told ourselves enough times that we're lonely, that obviously that becomes our reality. So again, this is just to really be with, this is quite a high level concept, but it is possible through practice.
I love that so much, and I know people can re-listen to this, but what you said was very deeply profound, and it really relates to, I don't know who said this, but I came across this a while ago, and it was basically that loneliness is the absence of another, like probably your overthinking mind thinking there's something missing, right? Getting caught in that loop. But aloneness is actually that presence with yourself. And
Love that.
yeah, I was just like, oh, that like hit me in the heart, like when I heard that. And it's so in alignment with what you just shared. And I think particularly during this kind of time that none of us have experienced previously, it's so powerful, because as we know, you can be surrounded by a bunch of people in your proximity and feel completely alone and isolated. But what you're saying is the power is within you being present to the moment's experience, instead of getting caught up in the loops of thought that make you feel the experience of being isolated or alone.
Yeah, and that that's such a great one, such an important one, that the difference between loneliness and alone, and also being that thing of being around people. Often clients will say to me, I feel really lonely when we're coaching on say looking for love, and so the question might then be to them is so have you ever been in a relationship and felt lonely? And often the answer is yes. When it's not going so well, or when there's something's up, even though they're in a relationship and they're maybe living in the same house, or they're seeing the same person every day, physically they're not alone, but they will still experience that loneliness, because that's what they're telling themselves. So it's just the same as if we told ourselves enough times that we're not lonely, well, that would be our reality. So it's literally just turning, anything that's not serving you in terms of your thought patterns, it's like, we'll turn it on its head, tell yourself that enough times. It may not take the 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years, or whatever it's taken to really embed it, but it will take a while. So it's again, it's just the repetition of something that helps us become masters of our own thinking.
I love this so much. And I know I kind of went off on that tangent because like I wanted to get your wisdom, but I'd love to bring it back to the story of you, really. Like what got you to the point that you're at now? Like what has been the journey of you getting to this beautiful place where you help so many people in such meaningful ways? But like, how did you get here? That's a big open-ended question, but I'd love to. Yeah.
The story. So how have I become to be a human behavior expert and a coach? A great label. So the way that I really see it is yes, I've trained in this for the last few years, but my real training again is my life experience. So for me, from a very young age, I was just fascinated by people. I remember being around 10 years old and people saying to me, stop asking questions. Why do you ask so many questions? Are you going to be a detective when you grow up? And I just loved it. And I always have. So I can't pinpoint exactly how or why it started, but there was just something within me that was just fascinated by humans. So I went on, I went through school, wasn't that interested, did a degree, wasn't that interested in that either. And it wasn't actually until I got to Australia. So having spent over 10 years in corporate in the UK, I was always having therapy. There was always some sort of self-development work going on, and there was always this feeling that I just wanted to do that my therapist job. I wanted to be in her chair, and but there was always this thing of I don't want to go back to uni and study for all of these years, and then I found my way over here, and then this coaching thing that I'd never really heard of before seemed to be really big over here. And it's anyone can be a coach in theory, right? It's different from being a psychotherapist or something like that. But for me, it was important to go away and get the skills and really study it. So even though there was a sense for me, I was like, oh yeah, I could coach people, I can help people. I've been doing that all of my life anyway, in my interest in them. Learning NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, learning, you know, just a whole bunch of other courses that I've done, has just been an absolute game changer. And even after having therapy for 8 years back in the UK, when I started having coaching, there was so much that I just never, you know, had never seen about myself. It was such a different modality, and very grateful to having the therapy that served its purpose. But there was really after 8 years, there was something different that was needed, and I wasn't sure what that was. And then I got here and discovered NLP and the coaching room and all of their courses, and yeah, it's been just life-changing. So yeah, so through learning about myself at a really deep level, yeah, to be able to do this as a job, it doesn't feel like work at all. So yeah,
I really resonate with that, and I'd love for you to tap into anything that you know, you feel like has been maybe your greatest personal struggle that kind of gives you that juice that goes, oh, like this is, you know, to get to a point where you're doing work that doesn't feel like work. It's been my experience and observation that people get to that place because there's such deep meaning in it, and you know, generally connected to something that they perceive to be a void in their lives or a personal struggle, and they did the work to kind of overcome that or break through that, to get to that place of meaning behind what they do. So yeah, is there anything that comes to mind when I ask you about what's been your greatest personal struggle?
Yeah, very severe anxiety for a number of years. Yeah, and it's interesting because I can't exactly remember where it started, but the assumption is that it probably started really, really young. But my most memorable time of it was actually when I was working in corporate back in the UK, and so I'd been in the same company for 11 years, and the last, I don't even know, 3 years, 2 years, whatever that was, just some real struggle, lots of work, lots of stress, you know, high pressure, just work piling up every, you know, couldn't ever see the bottom of the pile, but also now knowing that it was also my choice to stress myself out over the job, you know, my over responsibility, the perfectionism, you know, all of those programs that I now know about was running, and actually the anxiety that would always have been there before was just amplified in those moments. So really having quit the job and then come to Australia, and, you know, the anxiety had, you know, subsided. It wasn't enough, right? So that was a big lesson for me as well. It's not just enough to leave the thing for the thing to go. So we can keep, you know, running away as much as we think is, you know, needed, but we will always take ourselves with us. So for me, it was really you know, starting to study and you know, do all the studies to become a coach. And there were some really tough times in that. You know, I hadn't really worked since I worked in corporate 7 years ago. So for a good couple of years, I wasn't working. So, you know, I really wanted to make this work, but I needed to train. You know, clients weren't just going to come and give me loads of money when I wasn't, you know, qualified at the time. It takes time to build a business. So there was some stuff coming up around, you know, some anxieties that would come up around money. But the thing was that it was never as bad as it had been when I was in the UK and I had loads of money in the bank. The anxiety was just, you know, and I came here and I literally got down to like my last few pennies, my last few dollars. And I was like, no, I know that I want to do this. So I just kept working on myself and seeing what the anxiety was on behalf of and where it had all come from. And yeah, so through that process, it's just been, you know, over the last few years, is just really working on those deep rooted feeling safe and secure, not because of not having enough money, you know, not because of, you know, all of those external things that we think it may be on behalf of, but really seeing that it's just old stuff that, you know, that's just been repeated so much that anxiety was just like, you know, autopilot. It's just, the body just knew how to do it. So yeah, that would definitely be the struggle. Yeah, the biggest struggle.
So many questions come to mind with this, because I know so many people struggle with anxiety, myself included. That's been a huge one for me. You know, something that, you know, sometimes when you go along the growth journey, you have to kind of reflect back to how you have been and how far you've come as well with that. But it kind of leads me in two different directions, but I'd love to hear from you. Something that you just mentioned. Now, I know what you mean, because I've, you know, studied some NLP, you know, in your presence as well with the coaching room. So something you just mentioned that I just want to bring it back to and highlight for people, because I think it'd be valuable, is you said, what is the anxiety on behalf of? Right? So finding the purpose, the valid or powerful purpose behind the thing that we're trying to get rid of. And could you talk into that a little bit, maybe for somebody out there who is struggling with anxiety? I don't know many people out there who don't have an experience of this, but yeah, and why that's a value to know what it's on behalf of.
Yeah, so there's two ways we can go with this, and so one of the questions that's always a great one to know for yourself is even though it seems like it's the worst thing in the world to have, there'll be a positive intention still for why we're running it. Yeah. And so for me, it was really seeing that although it was, you know, I couldn't sleep for many months, you know, it was just, it was horrendous. You know, my body was just in this constant state of, you know, the heart palpitations and stomach butterflies but what it actually gave me was it got me up in the mornings, you know, without that kind of nervous energy in the body. You know, not that I wouldn't get up, but it really just, you know, it moved me. It got me into action. So even though I was really stressed at work, I wouldn't have a day off. You know, I would just run on the adrenaline of the anxiety, and it was my motivator. And so when the work started on you know, on really working on overcoming it felt a little bit strange to not have that energy anymore running through the body. I even put on weight. Because it just, you know, before I could just eat whatever I wanted and everything would just burn. So the positive intention was I'm skinny, I got stuff done, you know, so as horrible as it was, it served a purpose in my life. So it's always a really good one for people to see that however bad it seems, you know, there's something that's keeping it in place for us. You know, it's that old friend, it serves a purpose. Yeah.
So funny, because I had the exact same experience that you just articulated then, that my anxiety was keeping me more slim and getting me to get things done and get up really early, and but be, you know, not enjoying that kind of way of being in life, you know. And so what you're sharing right now, I think is so valuable for people to understand, that even though you're experiencing something you say you don't want, until you can identify the positive intention or the payoffs or the benefits from you having that pattern in your life, you won't be free from it, because you won't be able to discover other ways, other more resourceful or healthy ways of having those same benefits.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the key one, and that's the work then, is to go, okay, so so once I can see it, now I have choice. Do I want to keep it? Sure. Want to keep it? Probably not. So then it's about mapping out, how can I do me differently in another way, in a healthier way, and still get stuff done. And because often people will just, you know, they'll just think, well, there isn't another way. You know, if I'm not judging myself, I'm not going to get stuff done. So motivation strategies are often based on punishing ourselves. And I think that's kind of like the way that we've been brought up, you know, and we're now really in a place now, we're in an era where we're realizing that's not working anymore. And now we are coming into this more, you know, loving, this space where if we come more from this place of love, we may actually find that you know, we get to free ourselves a little bit more easily.
I love that. And also I think a term I learnt from being in the coaching room was that you're always at choice point, right? I love that. I'm always saying that now, like you're always at choice point, right? You don't have to be overcome by the patterns. So I want to also bring you back to another amazing thing that you said, which was in terms of, you were talking about your anxiety and its connection to finances. But then you said that you went on the journey of, making sure that you're creating a sense of safety and security within yourself. Now, I have the insider knowledge a little bit that you are what we call a type 6 on the Enneagram. Now, I feel like this would be a good kind of transition point into this a little bit, so that people who aren't familiar with what the Enneagram is, those who are in the Limitless Potential Academy masterclasses are familiar with it, but I think most people, just as a general rule, don't know what the hell the Enneagram is, for starters. So maybe you could touch on just a short explanation as to what that is, and then how we're maybe wired, like you being a type 6, how that could make you kind of have more of a tendency to focus on that necessity of safety, for instance, and then we can kind of unpack it as we go, if you like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the Enneagram personality typology. So it is a test that we can take. It's on the find it on the internet. We can put a link up if people are interested. And so what it does is we answer the questions, and it will type you as one of 9 different types. I think that the key thing about the Enneagram, which differs from other personality typology tests, say Myers-Briggs is quite a well-known one, is it actually, what it's about, it's really about who we're not rather than who we are. So we take the test, we come out as one of the 9 different types, and if we can really take a step back from it, what we get to see is a set of behaviors, a set of patterns that we have constructed for ourselves during our first 7 years of our life. So we are not born as our Enneagram type. So we're not born as one of those 9 types. We're simply born. We're born as a human being, with no thinking, none of that stuff on board. And so what happens in those, especially in those first 7 years of our lives, is we start to form our personality. And so that's obviously formed on the basis of our environment, on our parenting, our caretakers, our nursery schooling. And so we form our personality in order to actually to protect ourselves. So it's a protection mechanism, is the personality that we form, and also protection on behalf of getting love. Mm-hmm. So each personality type has a different way of getting love. So whether it's through what they do, whether it's through being different, through helping, each personality type has a different set of behaviors that would have got them love in their first few years of their life. And so what happens is, as we form this personality, we go through our lives, and however many years later, unless we've started to look at this stuff, we are actually we're still playing out the patterns of our 7-year-old self. So it's a really great tool to be able to do the test, to see which set of behaviors you do mostly, and to really realize them that that's not actually you. It's simply a collection of habits and behaviors. And then the freedom can really start from those if we choose to, if we're not happy, if we're not satisfied in our life right now.
This is so powerful for people to get, and I really loved how you explained that it's more of who you are not than who you actually are. Now, I haven't ever heard somebody say that before, and I really appreciate it, because a lot of the pushback from personality typology is, I don't want to be put in a box, right? And what you're saying is, no, we're identifying all of which is not you, so that we can dismantle it, so that you can have the freedom to be a true version of yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's kind of give people a little taste of that, because I know this is such an area of wisdom and expertise for you. And maybe we could touch on like a little short, quick explanation of like, what does it mean to be a type 1, for instance, and then kind of move through.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good place to start. So running through each typology. So 9 types. Type 1, the perfectionist. Type 2, the helper. Type 3, the achiever. Type 4, the individualist. Type 5, the investigator. Type 6, the loyalist. Type 7, the enthusiast. Type 8, the challenger. And type 9 is the peacemaker. So just to give you a little more, just a little bit more detail into each one. There's a lot of detail that comes with these, and you can even go online and read up about, even if you don't do the test, some people just even like to read about them and find out about themselves through the reading of them rather than the test. So type 1 is the perfectionist reformer. So the perfectionist reformer, these are the types of people who are perfectionists, right? Everything needs to be a certain way. They've got a great eye for detail. They've got a very, they're very good at structuring their days, for example. It's all about structure. They run a lot of judgment, so there'll be a lot of self-judgment that happens for a type 1 on behalf of needing to be perfect. And through their judgment of themselves, they will often be very judgmental of other people. So their name, the perfectionist reformer, is they like to try and reform people. They like to try and change people. So it's on behalf of their own deep wounding of not being perfect. So they go out and they try and change, and not only people, but they're activists. They're all about changing the world. So they'll do everything they can to try and help save the world. But often what's missing is that the problem isn't actually outside of themselves. It's actually their own deep judgment of self and their own imperfections that's actually the problem. So often looking out to change things when really,
So I just want to tap in quickly because these are such good explanations that I'm so excited for people to hear this. And also just to remind them, when you're listening to what Anita's saying with each of these 9 types, remember that these are like she said, strategies for getting love and for protecting the self. And it's come from your childhood, based on your experiences, maybe traumatic experiences or just shaping experiences that made you feel like, okay, in order to be loved and in order to be safe, I have to be this certain way. So for the reformer, they have to be perfect. And they got that message when they were growing up. Is that right?
Yeah, and that a good example for a perfectionist would be something like, so they come home from school and they've only got 9 out of 10 on their report card. They get asked by their parents what happened to the other one rather than well done. So so that's how the perfection starts to form. The 9 is never good enough. If it's not 10, then and it's really important to know as well, no one type is better than the other. And there are, this is only ever going to be like a really brief overview of them. And there's good and bad, if we're labeling good and bad of all of the types as we flow through our stress levels, basically. So when we're more in health and when we're more under stress, we'll show up in different ways. So there's great stuff about all of these types. We tend to focus on maybe the more stressed types, because it seems to resonate with people more, because most people are struggling, right? So it's a good in, and then
and I actually look at Enneagram, I look at it as a bit of a slap in the face, this kind of system, because it kind of wakes you up to the more shadow parts of how you operate, right? Because remember, these are all constructs to try and get something, get love or get protection or feel protected in our external world. So we're not being authentic. We're operating in patterns that are trying to get something. So they are a bit of a rude awakening when you get that, but when you have the courage to go there and own and acknowledge this stuff, it is, like Anita has been saying, kind of your ticket to freedom, to be authentic and to remove the construct. So awesome. And if maybe we go along, if you have any in mind, just like people in who are known publicly who might represent one of these types, maybe if you could share that if it comes up.
We'll do. Yeah, interesting. I've got loads of people I know, but not everyone's going to know them.
My granny's a reformer, but I don't know her. So.
Exactly. Okay, so the type 2 is the helper.
Yeah.
So just as the title says, they love to help people. They're all about the other person. They're over responsible for others, and in turn under responsible for themselves. So type 2s they're lovely. They're bubbly. They're quite extroverted. And they're all about everyone else. So they will really neglect their own needs in order to make other people happy. And so if we go back to the childhood, the wound of the 2, so for a type 2, a helper, it could be that they grew up in a household where there was a lot of siblings and they took responsibility of looking after others. So they got missed. It could even be, someone who grew up in a family with a parent that, say, was an alcoholic, or someone that couldn't look after themselves, and they actually ended up being the caretaker even as a child. So through that experience, they learn to not recognize their own needs and make it all about other people. So but yeah, again, there's obviously the helpful, the beautiful side. The problem can be for the helpers is they can get to a point of resentment where they're helping so much and they don't accept help from other people, and then they get resentful about that, even though they can't actually accept that themselves. So that's the type 2, the helper. The type 3,
I'm just pop in quickly on that one as well, because I want to say to people, as you go through this as well, like if you got to know how you show up in this model, it allows you to understand that we're all different, and then you have these different people in your life. Like I know my granny, right, the reformer, I know how she operates, and so I can meet her in a more caring way, like meeting her and kind of reassuring, if we know kind of that it points to that person's kind of Achilles heel, like where they feel most vulnerable, we can kind of build them up. Or if we're in relationship with a helper, that could mean that we know that they have a tendency to be overly giving and under receiving. And so we can kind of make sure that we're more conscious of balancing out that equation, or making sure that they know that they're doing what they're doing to help from a place of they want to, not because they feel like that's what they need to do to prove themselves and then, feel resentful or whatnot. Yeah.
Or get them to do the test and free themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been over responsibility.
And a really good point that just came up there as you were speaking as well, Vanessa, around this stuff is just that thing as well of really actually knowing. So if you're not one of the types, well, you're all of them. So as a human being, we are all 9 types. So throughout childhood years, we will preference one of the types in terms of the behaviors, but actually we're capable of doing behaviors of all the 9 types. So as you hear these, you may go, oh yeah, that's a bit of me, that's a bit of me, that's a bit of me, and it is. So one type will be your say your 80%, just whatever it is, but that remaining say 20% will be a bit of all the others, some more than others. So it's really knowing that as you hear this, you may hear elements of yourself within that, because it's a whole human being, all 9 types.
And it's a very deep system as well. And I'm trying to get you to like run over with this tiny little piece of information. So yeah.
Might have to do another one.
Yeah.
So number 3, type 3, is the achiever performer. Okay, and so with the achiever performer, so basically they're recognition as a child was all around their achievements, you know, so how well they did. So it was more around the doing rather than the being of them. So even, you know, how well they did at school, how well they did in sport, you know, what they look like, how pretty they were, how pretty they are. And so basically their focus as they grow up is all around what they do and what they look like, potentially, rather than the human being that they are. So I don't know, Vanessa, do you want to say anything?
Well, all I can say is this is my type, and it was a rude awakening to discover this for myself, but so freeing at the same time. I'm still doing a lot of work in this realm where it's just about understanding my motivations behind what I do. And for me, what's been most powerful is when I understood this, I could see how much of my being I had discounted and dissociated from, you know, and how empty that felt. And so part of my journey has been in owning my own emotions a lot more. And also that's why the biggest part of the work that I do is showing up and tapping into my authenticity, right? Discovering who I am and sharing that authentically. So yeah, lots that could be said in that one, but very interesting. Yeah.
Loving the threes. So what else can we say about threes? Threes will be the people that you see. So with some Enneagram types, it's really easy to kind of spot them on the street. So with a type 3, they tend to look good, as we can see with Vanessa. You know, the people that work out the most, potentially type 3s, not always, but potentially this is kind of the look of the 3. People pleasing, they love to be liked. They're very nice, really, really lovely, agreeable. And just knowing, you know, again, it's all around behaviors and intentions, as Vanessa said, and it's the same with any of the Enneagram types. It's really tapping into, well, what's my intention for this behavior or the choice to do this, and that can really help to then determine. So for a type 3, if their intention is, you know, to be seen or to be liked, if that's the intention behind it, then they are potentially, you know, still being driven by their childhood wounding of maybe not being seen for the human being that they are. Oh, so there's the 3. Yeah. So next is the type 4. The type 4 is the individualist, and so the individualist is they are different. They are the child or even the adult now that was basically got love from their difference rather than their sameness. So with a type 4, they will dress quite differently often. You know, when you see someone a bit quirky, wearing something a bit fancy, a bit different, that will usually determine that they're, you know, that it's kind of their stamp for difference. And even you could be in a room full of type 3s and they may look a bit more similar, whereas a room full of type 4s, they will be different and all look different. So you know, they might be the ones with the pink hair, and they're really, you know, identified by their difference. So they are introverted, they're romantics, there can be quite a lot of darkness with the individualist, because what happens with them is they really draw on the absolute darkness and pain and hurt that they've experienced in their life to create. So they're very creative. So just that, I answer that question, Joaquin Phoenix, for example, in The Joker, that would be that's your type 4. Yeah.
By the way, that's an awesome movie. But yes, absolutely.
Such a great film. Such a great film. So really drawing on the depths of the pain that they've experienced in their life, to create. So there'll be artists, there'll be singers. You know, the real creative types are the type 4s. So a real attachment to the need to be different. That brought them love as children. Yeah. So the type 5 then is the investigator. So the investigator is affectionately known as the more geeky, nerdy type of people in our lives. So again, introverts, very into investigating. So maybe train spotters, bird watchers, even programmers, computer programmers, you know, introverted, you know, really into investigating and yeah, just getting into the detail of stuff. Not really people. Don't want to be around people. Don't like being around people. It's all about, you know, just learning and being clever. So as a child, a type 5, an investigator is kind of like probably what was seen as the perfect child, the child that would be in their bedroom doing their homework for hours, quiet and just studying. So for them, their value as a child, how they got love, was all based on what they knew, on their cleverness. So very identified by what they know. Yeah, so that's the type 5. Type 6, the loyalist, that's the me. So the loyalist stroke the skeptic. So the loyalist, biggest wounding, biggest fear is that they are not safe and secure. So have absolutely no trust, no basic trust that you know, they're okay. So for the type 6, worst case scenario thinking, future planning, anxiety, massive for the type 6, just in constant planning and awareing to protect themselves, to make sure that they're safe. So the loyalists, they are loyal to anything that they can be loyal to keep them safe. So for me, my experience, for example, you know, staying in the same company for 11 years, even though I could have left a few years earlier, you know, was on behalf of, well, if I leave, will I ever find another job? Will I ever get enough money? Will I, just all this fear. So even though the job had run its course, the loyalty was so much stronger to feeling safe and secure within the job than the worst case scenario thinking of what may happen when you know, if I left. So it's really finding, you know, loyalists will go and find things to grab onto to help them to feel safe and secure. So whether it's staying in relationships for too long, even having friendships that I've got loads of friends from school still, from when I was 7 years old. You know, I do love you guys, I'm not just using you, but you know, it's all of that. It's just seeing the pattern of the safety and security in the familiar. So that's the type 6. And so as a child, for them, they would have had some experience of not feeling safe and secure. So for me, I went to boarding school from the age of 7, so potentially something started around that. For other people, it might be, you know, if they had a violent parent in their life, that could cause you know, a real feeling of being unsafe, and that anxiety starting from quite an early age. So that's the loyalist, type 6. The type 7 is the enthusiast. So the enthusiast is the fun-loving. They're the ones that, you know, they walk into a room and they're like, ah! You know, the loud ones, the extroverts, a bit manic, a bit chaotic, just fun-loving, and they are avoiding basically stillness, because stillness equals just a fear of what they might find within themselves. So for an enthusiast, for a type 7, they're just scared of ever unraveling their own deep inner pain. So they do everything they can to avoid pain by distracting themselves in adventure, in people, in just options, 100 different things. You know, they'll be going to 10 parties in one night. They'll be late. They're often late. They're mostly late because they're so lost in time and they've got so much going on that they end up just not being able to even keep up with themselves. So for them, it's all on behalf of avoiding stillness, avoiding pain, avoiding what may come up if they stayed still long enough. So they're identified in childhood as being the fun-loving, they got love for being just joyous and adventurous and fun-loving. So that's the 7. The type 8 is the challenger. Mm-hmm. So the challenger is the challenger, as the title says, they are the ones that will challenge you. They'll be the most direct. They'll be, you know, the first person to point something out in you that others maybe wouldn't say. They're very good at expressing emotions. They have no qualms about anger. They quite freely express anger. And what can happen with the eights is they're so free with all of their emotions that people can be left quite rattled by them, offended by their directness, scared even of their anger, and for them, they just don't even see it. So for them, it will be like they've just exploded, you know, like there's been an eruption, and for them it's just over as soon as it's done. So they, and you know, everyone else may be around them just in a state of whoa, and they're like, oh, what's the problem? Just have no awareness of their, you know, of their own strength, of their own power. So for the type 8s, during childhood, there is a core wounding of some sort of need to protect self. So perhaps they grew up in a family where they had a violent parent, where there was a need to protect themselves. They got bullied at school. Often that's the case for a type 8. So they really form this hard shell around themselves where they need to protect themselves. So that's the type 8. And then the type 9 is the peacemaker. So the peacemaker is the opposite to the type 8. So they actually repress anger. They are people pleasing. They live for peace. Basically, everything has to be peaceful. They are lovely. Another probably my favorite type is the peacemaker. If I meet someone, I'm like, oh, they're so nice. I'm like, they've got to be a peacemaker. And often what happens with the peacemaker is they're lovely and they're agreeable and there's always peace and harmony on the outside, but often they will be disagreeing on the inside and saying yes just to keep it all peaceful, but on the inside they're going, no, I don't actually want to do that. Or so what happens with the peacemaker is, although they maintain a peaceful outside, often there is a lot of unpeace rumbling away on the inside. So they don't like anger, they don't like confrontation, but every now and again, a peacemaker may explode because it's so just, you know, it's just so being held inside that every now and again, you know, it could be months for some, you know, even years, that there will eventually be some kind of eruption. So yeah, watch out when a peacemaker's about to erupt. So yeah, that's very brief. Yeah.
I'm laughing because my dad's a type 8 and my mum's a type 9, and it's funny because, you know, opposites attract, right? But yeah, that was so amazing. I know that was a hard task to kind of run through all 9 types and try and give this like little piece of information because it is such a deep framework. But I hope that for anybody listening who wasn't previously familiar with the Enneagram, that what Anita has just shared for you guys does kind of spark that interest in terms of like, I wonder what type I am and I wonder what that means for my own personal growth journey. So we're coming towards the end of our time together, and I want to respect your time as well. But I'd love to just kind of end with just a couple of quick, short lightning round questions, if you're open to it.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So I want to ask you first, what do the words limitless potential mean to you?
Ooh, limitless potential. What do they mean to me? Yeah, exactly what it says. Yeah. So as human beings, that's us, right? So we are completely limitless in our potential if we choose to go there and really look and do the work for ourselves. We get to see the limitations first, I guess, that we put on our potential, and then through to how limitless it can be. So yeah. Yeah,
that answer. Sure. Awesome. And what is something you believe that other people think is insane?
We'll say that again.
These aren't easy questions I've come from. What is something that you believe that other people think is insane?
that you can live a completely peaceful life.
Boom. I like that one. I feel like I'd want to take you on a whole nother session with that one. I'll try and keep it lightning round. And what book have you given the most as a gift or recommended the most?
I don't read.
What sort of framework or way of understanding human potential or behavior, what is your go-to that you recommend to everybody?
Yeah, so for me, it's like it's an interesting question, because I was thinking about this before I came on, how like people go, how do you not read? And I'm like, you know, through school and through growing up, it was like it just didn't interest me. And then learning all of this stuff in the last few years about human behavior, I've done it all through courses. And so really learning about myself, that my style of learning is through visual and kinesthetic, so watching and feeling. So when I'm recommending anything to anyone, it's not a book, because I don't read any. So what I do recommend, if I recommend anything, it would be to come onto an NLP course. You know, it will be to come and learn about, you know, if people are interested in this stuff, then for me, it's like, well, you know, go on a course, come into coaching. You know, my experience, rather than an experience that I haven't had, is if you really want to learn about yourself, come and do this.
I love it. Yeah, have the experience, right? I'm always saying you can't have an opinion on something unless you experience it. So you might as well get that quality. I love it. And what do the first 60 minutes of your day look like?
Oh,
I've
got a real routine going at the moment. So Epsom salt bath. Do I do that first? Yeah, I'll go with the Epsom salt bath first. Then I put on an avocado face mask. Then I will normally sit down and do some sort of meditation practice for, you know, however long, 10, 20 minutes. I take vitamins. I drink honey and lemon. What else do I do? I get myself ready. I have a real morning ritual at the moment. I don't really start my day till 9-11 o'clock. I'll go for a walk, actually. That would be part of it as well. I go for a walk down by the ocean, sit on a bench. So yeah, the mornings for me, there's a real, just love my mornings. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving your self-care. Like, I'm really loving that. And like, I'm going to go off topic just for a second here, but have you always been somebody who's been really hyper focused on like really making sure that you're setting up that self-care and staying true to that? Or have you been somebody who's had to discover that, not maybe looking after yourself, and then you've kind of just created this kind of system for yourself?
Yeah. So when I worked in corporate, I would get up and get ready in 30 minutes. And I hate, because I was in so early, and I would just hate that. And the minute I came over here, and I just had these mornings where I was putting essential oils on, I was like, this is, So for me, definitely the change between lifestyle, my job, and just seeing the importance of the work in that part of taking care of self. So yeah, big important one.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And do you have a quote that you live by for life, or you think of often?
It's something that my clients would probably hear me say a lot and repeat back to me is, this is the work. This is the work. Nothing else matters. This is the work.
I love that. Absolutely. That's awesome. All right. And okay, I will ask you one more. There's a bunch here, but I'll just say, what is one piece of advice that you would give to anybody listening to today's message that you feel could help empower them to live more authentically?
Okay, so probably the number one thing that I coach on, so I know that it will be relevant to most people, is really watching how you are talking to yourself throughout your days. Yeah, so this is a big one that comes up a lot of, there's a real thing, this may resonate with some people, it may not with others, but there's this real thing around positivity and positive thinking and needing to be positive and affirmations and all the rest of it. So what really comes up for me in this is we can look in a mirror and tell ourselves we love ourselves enough times to believe it or not really. But if we're not looking at all of this stuff that's outside of our awareness, which is all of the shit that we talk to ourselves, how are we talking to ourselves throughout our day? So what always comes up for me is it's not enough just to have these positive affirmations and to have all this positivity. It's looking at actually at the negative and not disregarding that. And really, if we can really start to look at that stuff and even writing it down, whatever works for people, to really start to bring outside to the forefront of what's really going on in our minds, however bad, however ugly it is, that's really where the work is for people. So really just really seeing, what is the quality? And it may just seem like, I've done it for so many years, it's so normal that it doesn't, but it does matter. And that's a lot of the time what's the biggest, it's the biggest problem for people. So it's really looking at what is the quality of what's going on in my mind every day, and loving that part of us. So it's not about stopping it or rejecting it when we see it, but actually bringing some real love to that, and knowing that it's all stuff that we've learned earlier on in our lives. It's just been repeated and repeated time and time again. And so the invitation is to have compassion and to love that part until it's not there anymore, because we're not just going to stop it or reject it. Being harsh with it isn't the answer. It's loving it.
I'm so grateful I asked that question to you. That kind of just like came off on the fly, that one, because I was like, I don't know where to go with those. But it's interesting because just a few days ago I was doing some journaling on this, because I often get people asking me about affirmations, and there's just I've never really resonated with that style of, saying, I'm a big believer in, if something works for you, keep doing it, right? Just for me personally, my question mark would be in, well, you have to believe it. Like, it doesn't mean that you're saying it. And what it kind of came down to for me was, how about we swap all our affirmations with compassionate curiosity? Right? Like, it's not getting rid of them, but how about we expand the ability to, use your affirmations if that's what works, and focusing on those things, because it works for a lot of people. But also what you're saying is there's a much larger chunk under the surface that is going on, that if left unaddressed is completely making the small amount of affirmation focus that you have, like, it just negates it. It's not really having an impact. Yeah.
But it's so true. And it is, it really is, it's that thing of it will work, and it does work for some people, but as you said, if we're not addressing that, it will only work until, and that's what I always say to people, it's like, well, if carry on doing it until you don't need to anymore. And what often happens is people will do a certain practice and then they will realize the limitations of it. It's a necessary process, but it's not sufficient. So for some people, it's I don't stop people from doing certain things, because if that's, as you said, what's working, it's working. But I will wait until they see for themselves the limitations in it, and then they're ready for potentially the next level of work. So it's all the layers. It's a necessary part of the process to go through them. Yeah,
totally well said. stages of development, they're not right or wrong, it's just where you're at. Yeah,
exactly.
So I want to quickly get to some of the comments and questions that people have left, if you are okay to just go.
Of course.
Love it. So Bill's sending love. We've got Brian and Cindy and Luke, and Tiffany says she's loving this. Sadiq is here. Tiffany says, I love the high level. It's always a lovely challenge. Yeah, I know you mentioned earlier, you're like, this might be a bit high level, but yeah. So they're loving it.
Nice. Good.
And Flo is saying, Vanessa, listening to you gives an eye opener. That's awesome. And he's saying thank you. And Tiffany says, I love that, Vanessa. I used to watch scary and sad movies to keep me in that fear and victim mentality, because that's what was familiar from my childhood. I was creating my own prison with my thoughts. Same thing with my loneliness. I love what you're sharing. Oh my gosh. Anything you want to say on that?
I love it. I love that. Great, awareness. If that's the first awareness, then great. But it sounds like there's a lot of awareness there, and that's the first key to all of this work, right? Is to see it first. So beautiful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tiffany. Oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing that you've had those insights.
Yeah.
And Bill says, I never feel alone. I have access to my spirit guides all the time. That's interesting.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Love it again. And Tiffany's agreeing with Bill. I love it. And Mohammed's here as well. And Tiffany says, NLP is one of my absolute favorite modalities. I recommend it to everyone. It's fascinating. I love that you do this, Vanessa. Brilliant. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, because like
my sort of woman.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to bring her on. I think we can.
Exactly.
So good. Awesome. And Jessa is in the house, and Anthony and Jose and Arian and Mahendra and Jamie is saying hello, and Aoni and Simon and Thorane. Simon says, yet another session to go even deeper in. Awesome. He'll be watching, I'm sure. And Thorane is saying, so good. Cool that you're talking about the Enneagram. So that's awesome. And Kenny and Jerry is saying, awesome. He'll listen to the replay. Tavasi is here. And Simon says, that sounds funny. Love it. Simon says, love it that we can recognize that we are made up of all of the above 1 to 9 types. Mum always said you have a specific type, but to be a well-rounded individual, you need to step into the other types to learn and grow. It will challenge you. Yeah.
Good mum. We like you.
Oh my gosh, Simon's always telling me amazing things about what his mum has taught him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she needs to hear a
Simon says.
Simon says always has. She says it will. He says that she says it will challenge you, but you will become a more balanced human being. Go the 9s. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, go the 9. Oh, thank you, everyone.
Simon.
Thank you.
And Leonardo and Ritvik and Bill saying thank you. Simon's loving it, and Bill saying great job. Awesome.
Oh,
so,
thanks.
I just want to really acknowledge you, Anita. You are such a beautiful human being, a beautiful woman. And every time I've gotten to be in your presence, I've absolutely just felt so connected to you, and it just feels like such a genuineness that you exert, and such a desire to help people to really see and understand themselves with no judgment, just openness. And yeah, it's just such beautiful work that you do. So I just want to appreciate you for that, and for blessing us with your presence today.
Thank you so much. Right back at you, everything you just said, by the way.
I love it. Awesome. And Tiffany saying thank you. And yeah, any final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with at all?
Breathe. If you take away anything from this session, as I say to people, remember to breathe. And that, it's a really important one. If there's anything, when we start to do this work, and we really start digging and really seeing what's going on in there, we can often get ourselves into a bit of a state. It kind of feels a lot worse at first than it does. And so the power of breath is a huge one. So throughout your days, wherever you are, whether you're at work or whether you're around people, we can always breathe, right? So if there's anything to take away, deep breaths. Deep breath. That's like 101. State change. Presence. Breathe. Free yourself from this crazy struggle.
Yeah. And I'm definitely going to take that advice personally, because I notice within myself, I stop breathing when I'm like really focused on something. And then of course you're going to get anxious or have anxiety, on the physiological response if you're not breathing as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having you, and I'll look forward to anytime you want to come back on. We want to take a deep dive in any direction. You're
Yeah.
welcome. It's absolutely my pleasure to get to connect with you. And to everybody listening, just want to thank each and every one of you guys. I hope this has been tremendously valuable to each and every one of you. I loved going through this and hearing your perspectives and everything that you've shared. Yeah, so make sure that you come, and where can people connect more with you and the work that you're
add me on Facebook, PM me. I'll be tagged into this. And what I thought, Vanessa, if this sounds good for you, is if there's anything that came up today that anyone would want us to go deeper into, then if they want to suggest something, then let's do it again. Sure, I'd love to, and make it relevant to what they want. Yeah, love to.
That's awesome. I think that was such a beautiful thing. So definitely drop us some comments. It'll be a good excuse to bring you back and go deeper. So that would be my pleasure. So just wanted to send everybody the message to go out there and live authentically, to love deeply, and to contribute meaningfully and purposefully. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Much love.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye, beautiful.
Bye. Thank you.